ste vi, kraj česme i stoji peški vezeni i bardak, hej, od kojeg smo stvoreni, i bardak, hej, od kojeg smo stvoreni, šehidi, hej, miljenici, gdje ste vi? Šehidi, hej, Evlijade, gdje ste vi? U prahu, hej, traktabana Boseni, ko klanja, hej, na sofama zeleni, ko klanja, hej, na sofama zeleni, šehidi, hej, Evlijade, gdje ste vi? Šehidi, hej, mirišljivi, gdje ste vi? Kraj sela, hej, dvorci vaši po Bosni, u bašći, hej, pokošeni cvjetovi, u bašći, hej, pokošeni cvjetovi, šehidi, hej, mirišljivi, gdje ste vi? Šehidi, hej, ptice bijele, gdje ste vi? Kola ste, hej, selice ste veseli, skup zvijezda, hej, u tespihu treptavi, skup zvijezda, hej, u tespihu treptavi, šehidi, hej, ptice bijele, gdje ste vi? Šehidi, hej, miljenici, gdje ste
since the genocide at Srebrenica in Bosnia and Herzegovina. The genocide committed against ethnic Bosniaks within the UN safe zone in July 1995 targeted Muslim men and boys, leaving more than 8,000 of them dead within a span of 2 weeks. The killing has been ruled by international courts as part of a broader systematic campaign of ethnic cleansing with aims of creating a greater Serbia. The United Nations has dubbed the genocide the worst atrocity on European soil since World War II. After the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989 and the subsequent collapse of the Soviet Union, inter-ethnic tensions had reached a breaking point in the former communist state of Yugoslavia. Slovenia and Croatia declared independence in 1991, which prompted Belgrade to deploy the Yugoslav People's Army into those areas. Slovenia was able to maintain its independence, having an ethnically homogeneous population, causing the JNA to retreat. But Serbian troops siding with ethnic Serb rebels in Croatia sparked a 4-year war there. Meanwhile, Bosnia's 4 million strong population made up the most ethnically diverse region, with Muslim Bosniaks and Catholic Croats pushing for an independence referendum, which was boycotted by the Orthodox Christian Serbs. War broke out between the Bosniaks and Croats on one side and the Serbs on the other in April 1992. but not long after, the Croats turned against the Muslims. Serb troops started a 3.5-year siege of the Bosnian capital Sarajevo, resulting in the deaths of at least 10,000 people who were killed by snipers and shells. Within a month, the Serbs controlled 2/3 of Bosnia. During the ethnic cleansing that expelled thousands of people from their homes, an estimated 20,000 women were said to have been raped. 2 months after the Srebrenica massacre in 1995, NATO forces began airstrikes on Serb positions. After 3 weeks of negotiations in the US, Bosnian, Croat, and Serb leaders finally agreed to a peace deal in November. Then in December 1995, a UN peacekeeping force was deployed to Bosnia, where 51% of the territory became a Muslim Croat federation, with the remaining land becoming the Republic of Serbia. The International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia, which was established in 1993 to examine ongoing military conduct at the time, went on to convict Serb leaders of genocide, war crimes, and crimes against humanity, including former Serb leader Radovan Karadzic and military commander Ratko Mladic, who was deemed responsible for the siege of Sarajevo and the Srebrenica genocide. And the first president of the Republic of Serbia, Slobodan Milosevic, was charged but not convicted of war crimes. After his death in custody, the International Court of Justice concluded there was no evidence linking him to genocide. Then in 2006, the state of Bosnia and Herzegovina filed a lawsuit against the states of Serbia and Montenegro. The International Court of Justice ruled the following year that though it was not directly responsible for the genocide, Serbia had breached the UN's Genocide Convention by failing to prevent it and failing to cooperate with the ICTY. Now, 25 years later, survivors are still demanding accountability for the killings. Burials of newly identified victims continue to this day. The process of locating the graves and identifying the victims was complicated by a well-organized effort undertaken by Bosnian Serb forces in September and October 1995 to hide traces of the Srebrenica crimes. Some people have even pushed for the adoption of the law of the prohibition of genocide and war crimes denial by the Parliament of Bosnia and Herzegovina after the upper house voted against the motion in January, but the international community has said it would impose the law through the High Representative. Meanwhile, prosecutions linked to the Srebrenica genocide have been slowed by the current coronavirus pandemic, and the appeal by Ratko Mladic against his conviction has been postponed by the UN Tribunal at The Hague. A total of 47 people have been sentenced to more than 700 years in prison, along with 4 life sentences by the Hague Tribunal and courts in the Balkans for the crimes committed in Srebrenica. But no new verdicts have been handed down by the Bosnian State Court since last year. Concerns over COVID-19 have also limited this year's memorials to mostly virtual events. The funerals of 8 people identified over the past year will still be held at the Srebrenica Memorial Center in Potocari, but with reduced numbers from the planned 100,000 people. A few heads of state are still expected to attend, and those who canceled their plans to join will still be able to send in video messages. A peace march initially planned for 10,000 people has also had to reduce its number of attendees due to pandemic restrictions. The Srebrenica Memorial Center launched a project called Reading for Srebrenica, in which around 100 poets, journalists, artists, and other public figures came together to read the names of the victims in an attempt to highlight every individual who died in the genocide.
Srebrenica was a small salt mining town in Bosnia and Herzegovina, become refuge for tens of thousands of Muslims during the Bosnian War. Instead, it will be forever known for one of the worst massacres since World War II. It forced peace in the region, but Bosnia is still haunted by the atrocity 25 years later. You may know the name Srebrenica, but what unfolded? How was it allowed to happen, and has there been justice? I'm Liz Maddock, and this is Srebrenica Decoded. It's 1992, and fresh from the collapse of Yugoslavia, an independence vote sparks war in Bosnia. Serbia saw the unrest as an opportunity to expand its borders and achieve its dream of a great Serbia. Now, part of the plan was to expel Muslims from the region so that Serbs were the majority. Over the next 3 years, tens of thousands of Muslims fled persecution into a number of UN safe zones, one of which was in Srebrenica. But Bosnian Serbs wanted to annex the territory that's just adjacent to the Republic of Serbia. So, in 1995, leader Radovan Karadzic laid out his plan in Directive 7, ordering his army to create an unbearable situation with no hope of survival or life for the inhabitants of Srebrenica. General Ratko Mladic led the army and invaded on July the 6th. Only 400 lightly armed UN peacekeepers had been deployed to protect the enclave and the civilians there, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. Mladic easily took over and walked through town, promising people they would be safe, but he had other plans. The men and teenage boys were taken to detention centres where they were subjected to extreme torture or killed. In just 5 days, more than 8,000 Bosnian Muslims were killed. They were piled into mass graves, some of which have never been found. The women and children were deported to Tuzla, a nearby city controlled by the Bosnian army. Many were raped, some were taken off buses, never to be seen again.
Vodili muškarce tamo, ubijali, klali. To su krikovi bili za rijeke tamo po žitima. Šta nisu radili, sinovi su mi ošli preko šume. Nikad ih nisam u grobnicama ih pronašla, onda jednu košicu, onda jednu dok sam ih pokopala.
So, has there been justice for the victims and their families? And Radovan Karadzic, who's considered the mastermind of Srebrenica, was on the run for 13 years. That's until he was tracked down in Belgrade, where he'd been working as an alternative medicine doctor under a fake identity. He was found guilty for genocide and crimes against humanity in 2016 and was sentenced to life in prison. Then there's Ratko Mladic, aka the Butcher of Bosnia. Now, he'd been hiding out for more than a decade before finally being arrested in 2011. It took another 6 years for him to be found guilty in The Hague, and he was also given life in prison. It's now 25 years since the Srebrenica genocide, and many families are still looking for their loved ones. More than 1,000 people are still missing. Every year on July 11th, Bosnia marks the anniversary by burying newly discovered remains in a collective funeral. They also march for peace. But peace is still a long way off for many. There are those who desperately want to find their loved ones, others who are still seeking justice. And Bosnia itself is trying to balance remembrance and accountability with a desire to heal and move forward. That's Srebrenica Decoded.